Awesome.
Go ahead. I'll keep admitting people while you're
Perfect.
Tell us about Dallas Pets Alive is sponsoring this webinar today.
Yes, and my name is Janae. I am the Dallas Pets Alive foster director, and Dallas Pets Alive was born about 10 and a half years ago, and we started out as pretty much a dog only rescue. And then somewhere along the way, someone convinced somebody else that they wanted to bring a mom and kittens into the program. And from there, pretty much exploded with cats. And the past several years, yes, the past 2 or 3 years, we've actually had more cat intakes and cat adoptions. And we knew that we needed something to help support our cat fosters behaviorally. So that's when we got connected with the wonderful Molly, and we are able to host these awesome cat webinars to give our fosters and the community and the public something great and cat wonderful.
That's
and
great.
That is us. So at the end, I'm probably going to do a plug if anyone is local and wants to foster. We're Dallas based and definitely need more people. So yeah, learn about cat enrichment and then pick up your cat foster.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about too where you are so people can come visit and stuff. Someone is has put it in the chat menu that they don't have sound. I'm assuming everybody else can hear. I've replied maybe on their speaker end. I'm not sure if okay, good. Everybody else can hear. Okay, so if anybody has any suggestions for her, you might want to you might want to pop them in the chat window.
There might be a way to dial in if you click the little next to the mute thing and you click audio settings. That's how I know how to do it.
You might put that in the chat window.
Oh, I was about to say they can't hear me. What am I doing?
Hear you.
There we go.
Okay.
Molly, do you want to make me co-host so I can admit people if needed?
Yeah, hold on. Let me do that here. Actually, I can't do co-host on this, only host. So don't worry, I'll get them. I'll get them.
You got it. Perfect.
Yeah, not to worry. Okay, so welcome to Cat Enrichment, and I'm really happy to see so many of you here because, you know, I kind of thought, well, this might be one of those topics where everybody's like, well, I know about cat enrichment. I, you know, do stuff with my cats, and I'm really glad to see you here because it's very important. And I decided to break it into 7 categories. So let's jump in here. For those of you who don't know me and haven't been to one of these webinars before, we do these webinars quarterly with Dallas Pets Alive, and I usually do a couple more, but primarily for them. And they are recorded. So if you want to share this with someone afterwards, it will appear on my YouTube channel at some point after the seminar today.
Okay.
And if you'll mute yourselves, that would be great so that we're not picking up your noise in the background too. So basically, I'm a certified feline training and behavior specialist, and I like to say I'm like a cat psychologist, right? I'm not a veterinarian. I can't prescribe medication or things like that, but I do psych evals on cats and try to figure out what's going on with them, both in a home setting and in shelter settings. I have worked in shelters for well over several decades. We won't talk about how many, and really get tired of seeing cats euthanized in shelters and tired of seeing cats surrendered to shelters for behavior problems. So,
a little bit on top.
again, whoever, if you're not muted, will you mute yourself? Because we're picking up some background noise here for you guys. Okay. And anyway, so in seeing all of that, I decided to start a nonprofit, Cat Behavior Solutions, where I'm collecting a whole bunch of do-it-yourself cat behavior material out there. We do a weekly radio show called Cat Talk Radio. You can go to cattalkradio.com. There is a page that lists all of our podcasts by topic. So easy to find, and I'm available for consults if you run out of do-it-yourself material and ideas. So let's jump in and look at what we are going to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about what is enrichment, right? And why are we talking about it? And then I'm going to dive into the 7 categories of enrichment. I figured out all the enrichment things I wanted to share with you, and I put them neatly into 7 categories for you. So enrichment, we always hear cats need enrichment, but do you know what that really means, right? What is it? So enrichment is a noun, and technically it's defined as the act of improving or enhancing the quality or value of something, right? So why are we talking about it? Why is it important enough to do a webinar about? Well, first of all, let's take some of those words that are in the definition. Improvement. That's a synonym for enrichment is improvement. And who doesn't want to improve their cat's well-being, right? So it's important. Flourish is another synonym. And I think that really describes well what we're talking about today, because we want our cats to flourish in their environment. And when they don't, they very well may develop health and behavioral problems when they are deprived of environmental outlets. So it's very, very important. Flourish isn't like icing on the cake. It's the cake with the icing. It's not extra or optional. I don't think enrichment is something you can say, well, let's see, do I want to provide my cat enrichment or not? Yes, your cats need enrichment, not only to flourish and potentially not develop diseases, but also not to develop behavior issues, because without enrichment, a cat gets bored, and boredom can lead to aggression and attention-seeking behaviors at best. And so without enrichment, behavior issues also become an issue. It's also has to do with animal welfare. Enrichment, this is about that cat's ability to cope with the environment with which it lives, right? And without enrichment, it adversely affects welfare. And then things start happening. You start to see over-grooming. You start to see behaviors that are related to lack of enrichment. Also, obesity and disease. When cats don't have an environment where there's enrichment, they tend to get overweight. Overweight leads to potentially diabetes and heart issues and other types of diseases. So enrichment is important. And these are just a few reasons why we're talking about it. So the 7 categories. Let me see if I can, let me minimize myself over here. Hold on. And that way, oops, can get out of there. We go. 7 categories of enrichment. Physical, right? Their physical environment. Nutritional enrichment. Elimination, isn't that cute? Social enrichment, that's another aspect. Behavioral enrichment, very important one. And mental enrichment. And then there's also sensory enrichment, right? So let's take these one at a time. And I'm going to list, there are a few overlaps, but I want you to see how they relate to the categories. And if you want to keep a list of all of these things, I think that's a good idea. I was going to put together a checklist, which I may still do, so that it breaks it down and can kind of check off whether your cat has these things or not. So when we're talking about physical enrichment, what physical enrichment does is it provides certainty, consistency, and predictability for your cat. And that's important because cats need to feel in control. If a cat does not feel in control of its environment and surroundings, it's going to have a lot of stress. And as we know, stress leads to behavior issues, stress leads to disease. It's not a good thing for any of us. So in physical enrichment, we start with routine. And what that means is that everything happens on a schedule. Everything happens in a very ritualized routine when it comes to the cat's life. Now, I know our lives aren't always that way. We can't make sure that, you know, we leave the house at exactly the same time every day and things like that. But we can make sure that we feed our cat at the same times. We play with them, that their environment is not very unpredictable. Quiet places to rest, right? Cats sleep 16 hours a day. And then if we don't indulge that with quiet places to rest, then again, that increases that stress level of the cat. Lots of options and places to rest. Now, I'm going to tell you that cats are like Goldilocks, right? It's not enough to have one bed for a cat. In fact, I think Pico has 7 or 8 in various places around the house, not including his catio area. And one of the reasons that cats like to have lots of beds, not only are they, you know, just picky and finicky and we'll all go sleep in this one today like Goldilocks, but in the wild, they sleep in different places, right? So in the wild, the cat's going to carve out a large territory and it's not going to sleep in the same place every night. And the primary reason for that is parasite control. If they sleep in the same place, then parasites, they get lots of fleas and ticks. If they sleep in a different place every night, then that helps with parasite control. So it's in their DNA. It's hardwired into them not to sleep in the same bed every day. Now, if you only provide one, your cat might sleep in the same bed, but it's going to be a much more enriched environment if you provide multiple beds for them. High places. Of course, we all know cats like to perch in high places. And having, again, more than one throughout the house that are high enough to provide a safe vantage point to what's going on, you know, outside of the reach of people and other animals, right? Because cats are both predator and prey, they naturally climb to high places for observation. So very important part of enrichment. And however you provide that, you know, steps on the wall to a bed, you can, you know, really tall climbing places, but out of reach is the best so that they have a place they can go and observe their domain, of course, that they're in control of. Multiply everything, right? If you have multiple cats, this is going to mean having multiple resources. Just like we said, I have one cat and I have 6 or 8 beds for him, and he does sleep in every one of them, different times of the day and different days. And so if you have multiple cats, then multiply all of that times all of that. All right. And so lots and lots and lots of choices for cats is very, very important, especially in a multiple cat household. We don't want them fighting over resources. We don't want them to ever feel like their environment is lacking in enrichment. So ideally, right, with all of this, what I've just said, ideally, you'd set up a sanctuary room for each cat you have, and the access door would be controlled by a microchip, you know, that is only lets that cat in that sanctuary room. So ideally, every cat would have a room like this with high perching places and scratching posts and their own big open litter box and stuff so that they can go be by themselves when they want. Now, do we have it? No. But ideally, if you want to know maximum physical enrichment in your home, that would be it. So nutritional enrichment, this plays a big role in how your cat feels. Okay, so let's start with Don't feed your cat. That's for the same reason we shouldn't be eating junk food. Although I did earlier at lunch, but if we eat a bunch of junk food, we're likely going to be obese. And when we're obese, it leads to a more sedentary lifestyle. And sedentary lifestyles lead to disease, and the reason is because when a species is obese, it doesn't feel good to move around. Things start to hurt, joints hurt, it's uncomfortable. We get stiff when we get up and move around because we've been sitting so long. And that's not at all good for cats. That is not natural to a cat's lifestyle. Feed it a species appropriate diet. That's what I mean by no junk food, right? Cats are obligate carnivores. They really only need the meat, omega-3s, lots of hydration in food. In addition to meat, they also need bones and organs in the food. Hydration is probably the biggest, most important thing I said there, because dehydration leads to all kinds of things, beginning with just not feeling great. When we're dehydrated, we don't feel great. Cat doesn't feel great either when he's dehydrated. So a species appropriate diet is so very important. And there's a lot of good options out on the market now. There's just really no reason to not feed your cat a good quality species appropriate diet. So another component of nutritional enrichment is the frequency of feeding. And the reason is because in the wild, and I say that a lot, because that's probably the crux of everything I believe in and how we take care of our cats, because they still have a 96% DNA link to their wildcat ancestors. They really need what they would need in the wild. In reality, they haven't evolved all that much physically, right? So really, if we could provide in a home what they would be doing and getting in a natural environment on their own, that would be awesome enrichment, right? So in the wild, they're going to eat 10 to 20 small meals a day. Well, you might feed your cat like you do your dog. You might feed it 2 meals a day. And that's great for a dog. It's not great for cats. If we want our cats to thrive, we need to be feeding them multiple times a day. I feed Pico 5 times a day. We feed him 4 fresh meals and then a 5th meal in a food timer that goes off in the middle of the night. Now, you may be going, that's ridiculous. I got to go to work. I'm not home 24 hours a day. Well, we aren't either. And that's why we have these meal timers. I like these closer pet ones. They have big ice packs. So if you're gone a long time, they do keep the food cool a long time. They come in a 2-meal container. This one is a 3-meal container. They make a 5-meal container. And so when you can't be there, that's okay. That's no excuse not to be keeping with routine and feeding your cat frequently at the same time every day. So Pico gets fed at about 7, 12:30, 5:30, 10:30, and 3 a.m. every day, like clockwork. And on days like today, when I'm not there all day long, he's got his little timer set up. So he's going to get fed until we can get home tonight for that last feed. The other thing is the size of the portions that you're feeding, right? Because cats eat 10 to 20 small meals a day, it's important that we understand that their stomachs are really small in comparison to their other organs. Their stomach is really about the size of a ping pong ball when it's full. So they don't eat a lot of food. They don't need a whole can of food at every serving. They need maybe a quarter of a can of food at every serving. So small portions. If you put out, if your cat is used to eating only twice a day, it may be gorging itself because it doesn't know when the next meal's going to come. It's going to be thinking, God, 12 hours is going by before I get fed again. So I better gobble all this stuff up before it goes away. The other thing in food frequency in multi-cat homes, a lot of times you'll have one cat that scarfs his meal up and then goes and eats everybody else's meal because you're not feeding frequently enough. Once their stomachs are full kind of regularly in a regular, more naturally spaced time, 4 to 5 hours apart, then they feel much better. So the other thing is we've got to provide hunting and foraging opportunities. So the failure to indulge them in that predatory behavior just deprives them of both mental and physical activity, which again contributes to obesity and other health problems. So I recommend giving them treat puzzles and food puzzles. I like this one, this new little treat puzzle from Vitacraft called the Puzzler. I think they're out in Walmarts now. Not every Walmart. You may be able to find them online, but they come with treats. They come with a little bag of their meaty morsels in there, and they're awesome. So Pico has lots of treat puzzles. I think he has 8 different treat puzzles because he's smart and he figures them out fast. Once he figures them out, it's not even a mental challenge. He just goes, okay, and gets the treats out and eats them all up. So I have to change them out. I put a different one out every day and rotate them. This one is actually a little more challenging because they actually have to reach in there and scoop it out with their paw and bring it out. So this style is kind of my go-to everyday treat puzzle. Another thing is no family meals. And you may say, well, my cats eat together just fine. They're siblings. They've always eaten together. But again, it's not natural. In the wild, they do not hunt together. They're not a pack species. They're not descendants of lions. They don't develop prides where they all go after the gazelle and then lay around and eat it. That's not these cats. These cats have descended from a total different lineage of cat. So eating together out of the same bowl and even in sight of one another is not a natural thing. So if you have multiple cats, feed them, I like to say space them out at least 4 feet apart and preferably like around the kitchen island or something where they're out of sight, or different rooms where they don't have to see the other cat and feel any stress about, is that cat going to run over here and eat my dinner when it's done? So the other thing is where you feed. Feed them in a quiet area away from appliances, not next to the dishwasher or the washing machine and things like that. They really need a quiet, out of place area. I used to feed Pico in this space in our utility room, our pantry, but it's a high traffic area. The traffic flow in our house bottlenecks. There's just 2 of us, so it's not like there's a lot of traffic, but it does seem like we come and go into that space a lot. And I noticed that Pico would look over his shoulder at us if he was eating, and I could tell he was just a little nervous. He didn't stop eating, but he would look and like, uh-oh, are they going to step on my tail? Because it was kind of out in the walkway. And I moved his food bowl to a more quiet area, actually by our back door, that's just quieter, away from all that, and it's much better. Now he eats, he doesn't look nervous, he doesn't look around, he'll eat his whole meal all the way through without coming back to it. So the next category is elimination enrichment. And of course, by that, I mean a comfortable, natural place for the cat to eliminate its feces and urine. And basically, overall, you need to provide natural opportunities. Again, this is if we provide everything that cat would have in its natural environment in a home setting, then the cat is going to be well enriched. So this starts with an appropriate litter box setup. I've got a picture over here of ours that you can see. And I'll point this out as we go through these. So this starts with large boxes. The boxes really need to be 1.5 times the length of your cat from the tip of its nose to its back end, plus a minimum of 1.5 times. Now, your cat's big and lanky like Pico is, that's a 24-inch box. So I was glad. I was in a Petco the other day. I don't normally shop in those stores, but I happened to be in there and I noticed some larger litter boxes on the shelves. And I was like, yeah, finally, maybe the manufacturers are listening. If you can't find a big enough litter box, go to the dollar store and just get under the bed storage boxes. Really, they can't be too big. I told a client that was having multiple cat urinary problems that ideally, if you had a kiddie pool full of sand, that's what the cat's going to find most natural. Well, I didn't mean for her to go do that, but she did. She went and bought a kiddie pool, filled it with sand. And she said, I followed up with her a couple of weeks later. She goes, what? I just went and got the kiddie pool. You said that was the thing they'd like the best. And she goes, I haven't had any trouble since. And I was like, okay, well, whatever's working, but it was a little excess. 1.5 times the length of the cat is probably good enough. Open boxes, all right? Covered boxes not only trap odors in there, and they've done studies on the amount of ammonia particles in the air in a covered litter box, and it's dangerous. It's very dangerous for your cat to be inhaling those, and that's reason number one. Reason number two is, again, it's not natural. In the wild, a cat is not going to go into a cave or a hole to do its business. It goes in a relatively open space because it wants to be able to see predators approaching when it's doing a vulnerable thing. Cats find pooping to be more vulnerable than peeing because it takes longer and they're in a position where they can't defend themselves if something came out of the blue to get them while they were going. So they don't hide, they're out where they can see potential threats. If you have a multi-cat household and a cat is inside the box, it's wondering who's going to ambush me when I'm coming out. So open those litter boxes up. You can see in this photo, I don't want to see my litter box either. So I've put a screen up. It's open on both sides. He has 2 access routes. Right? He can, if another cat was coming in, no cat can get trapped in this space. And I don't have to look at it. And I can easily get back there and scoop it and do everything I need to service the box, but I don't have to see it. You need to have one more litter box than you do numbers of cats. And those people that have 5 cats and they're living in a 1-bedroom apartment, I get it. 6 litter boxes is a lot, but that's what your cats need. They absolutely need that to not feel like there aren't enough resources in the environment. Lack of resources is a direct violation of enrichment. These boxes also can't be all clumped together, right? You can't just get one kiddie pool full of sand and think that's enough for your 5 cats. Really, you'd be better off with some reasonable size litter boxes and spread out throughout the home. If you have a multi-level home, they need a minimum of 1 on every level of the house, right? Preferably probably 2 on every level of the house. This way, no cat can block access to a comfortable elimination station of any other cat. And when cats block resources, they're not as obvious about it as dogs. A dog will be there going, and growling and being real obvious, hackles up and stuff. And a cat may just be laying on the floor, just laying there, looking at the other cats, just making their physical body an obstacle, a speed bump on the way to the litter box. And the other cat comes in and goes, I'm not going to go past Tommy. Every time I go past Tommy, he reaches out and whacks me. So I think I'm going to go in the closet instead. It's quieter in there. Nobody was in there last time I checked. So they really block resources in a much more subtle way than dogs do. They prefer unscented because all of those chemicals used in litter to mask the odors are too heavy for cats because their noses are particularly sensitive sense of smell for cats. And they're just not healthy for cats, not healthy for us either. But when their little faces are down in it, all of that scented litter is not good. There's really great unscented litter. I mean, even if you're going to use clay litters, Tidy Cat makes a clean litter that's got little charcoal beads in it, and that's what controls odor. There's no extra chemicals added to mask the odor. They also prefer a very sandy texture. They don't prefer pellets and things that are not natural. Cat's not in the wild, gonna go into a little gravelly area and go to the bathroom. It's gonna go where there are, leaves and sand and loose material. In fact, Pico did that yesterday. I had him out on his harness and long leash while we were working in the garden, and I looked over and I realized he scratched down through the mulch into the sandy dirt and gone and covered it all back up. Clumping is a good option for us, right? Because it's easier to keep it clean. I just did a podcast on Cat Talk Radio on litter. Someone had asked, what's the best litter? And I'm like, that's a hard question, because finding a litter that's good for the environment and the cat likes it and we like it, and odor controlling and not tracking. I mean, really, that unicorn cat litter doesn't really exist. I don't think there's one that checks all the boxes, but the podcast is really good. We talk about the different kinds and the pros and cons of each. So, and it was recent, a couple of weeks ago. So check that out. Obviously scoop frequently, because cats are just fastidious about things being clean. And if that box isn't clean, it's going to find somewhere else to go. And by clean, I mean, is there a big enough space? And part of this has to do with size of the box, that the cat can go in there, dig around, turn around, squat, walk away, cover it without stepping on a previously soiled area. And if not, then the cat's not going to like that. And they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go, this environment is tough here because it's always dirty in my litter box. And clean the litter box, right? That means replace the litter. I don't know how many people I talk to that are just like, replace it. I just keep adding to it. Well, that litter, absorbs a lot of odor, and you really need to go ahead and dump it. I just let mine get good and low, because it's clumping. And so as I'm scooping the clumps out, litter comes with it. And eventually it gets really low. And I go, yeah, the box, it's time to clean the box. And then I just dump the litter and I wash the box out with Dawn detergent. And I spray Live Pee Free on the box. And if you don't know about Live Pee Free, you can email me and I'll tell you all about it. But I mist the box with Live Pee Free and then put the litter back in and then mist the top of it and put it back. You need to do that depending on how many cats you have. Probably every 4 to 6 weeks, you should completely empty and clean the box. So this paints a good picture of what elimination enrichment looks like for a cat. And the next category is social enrichment. And this pertains to all of the beings, really, that share the same home space, the people, the other species of animals in the home, people, dogs, other cats, gerbils, mice, whatever. So cats need to be allowed contact with the non-prey species in the house. And what that means is they shouldn't be sequestered. I mean, obviously, if you're introducing a new cat, there's a period of sequestration that's required so that those cats integrate socially. But, once a cat's integrated into the home and it's the cat's home, they really need to have contact with all the other species in the house. And that is because the cat won't have a sense of control of his own environment if not, right? Cat begins to realize its boundaries with the other species. And usually the cat's in control. All of you who have dogs know fully well your cat is in control of the dog. And the cat needs to be able to exercise that control over to the other non-prey species in the home. Obviously, if you've got a prey-driven dog, let's not do that. But you probably shouldn't have a cat. But at any rate, they need to have contact with the other animals and people in the home. It's also very important in a social context that we respect a cat's boundaries. Some cats like to be pet and groomed, and other cats don't like to be touched, you know. Other cats want to do distant prey play with you. That might be all the interaction you get of that cat. And that's fine. It's very important that we respect the boundaries of our cat, our individual cat, and what it wants and what it's comfortable with. And if it's not comfortable with something, please don't do it, because that's not enrichment. Enrichment is saying, I respect your boundaries. Another one is to understand, right? And this isn't something you add to an environment. This is something we add to our knowledge database. And that is that cats really lack in conflict resolution skills. And that's because they have evolved as a solitary species. Without a social hierarchy, there is no conflict resolution skills, right? Dogs figure things out because they have a very good, solid social hierarchy. There's an alpha dog, there's a beta dog, everybody has their place, and they know how to tell each other what their place is. I have a very good communication skill between one another. Cats do not. They communicate primarily with body language between one another. But when there's a conflict in the house between cats, just know that they really don't know how to resolve it well. And you may have had cats that get into an issue. The most common is, I took my cat to the vet, I brought him home, he smells different, and now my other cat's attacking him. Or they see cats outside and there's redirected aggression, something that causes your two cats that have gotten along forever to have a conflict. Sometimes it takes a very, very long time for them to work that out. Sometimes they don't work it out at all. So understand that there's lacking of conflict resolution skills, and don't put your cat in an uncomfortable position where he's in a situation where conflict is going to happen, because they're not going to know how to deal with that real well. Separate resources. We talked a little bit about that earlier in the physical enrichment compartment. Each cat needs its own separate resources. It needs its own food bowls, its own water bowls, its own beds. Now they may all share, but you need to have enough so that every cat has its own, and then some. I always say, and then some. More is better, because we don't want them competing for resources. Competing for resources is conflict that they are not capable of resolving just because of the nature of the species. So in a social enrichment context, these would be the things I think are important. Next is behavioral enrichment, and this is the big category. This is the category that covers all the things that allows cats to express their natural behaviors, right? So starting with scratching and clawing. If you're not giving your cats an opportunity, an appropriate opportunity to scratch, then your furniture is going to look like this, because that's not optional. They have to scratch and claw. It's a territorial gesture for them. They're leaving an individual scent marker behind. They're also getting a good back stretch, and they're trimming the dead sheaths off the ends of their nails. There's lots of reasons cats scratch. It is a natural behavior, and we have to let them do it. It's not optional, right? It's also important to know that cats have different preferences for scratching materials, different surfaces. Some like sisal, some like carpet. Every cat's different. Some like to scratch vertically, some like to scratch horizontally. I make sure I provide it all, because I don't want him to decide someday, I don't like that stuff, I'm going to go scratch over here. It looks more attractive, right? So the other thing is that they tend to scratch after they sleep. So once they get up from one of their 6,000 naps they take during the day, one of the things they like to do is go scratch. Part of that is a stretch. You know, I just got through napping. Oh, I'm going to go get a really good back stretch. It's really impossible for them to get a full back stretch without engaging their body in elongated. So put your scratching posts near beds, near sleeping areas, because make them accessible right there next to the bed. The other thing is, because they do it for territorial marking, put your scratching posts near, hold on, I'm trying to admit somebody, put your scratching posts near like your foster's doors. Put it near your back door. I have big glass sliding back doors, and I have a scratching post right there by the back door. Just in case he sees another cat outside, I want him to be able to mark his territory appropriately where he wants to mark it and what I want him to mark it on the post, not the sofa that's also right there by the back doors. So be strategic in where you place your scratching posts. So the other thing, ideally, since we're talking about ideal enrichment environments, well, ideally you'd have a giant tree growing, a natural bark tree growing in the middle of your home with lots of fun climbing limbs and stuff. And the cat could just go up the tree, scratch the tree, sleep in the tree. I mean, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? I would love that. So another thing a cat has to do is scent. Right? They have very important pheromones in the side of their faces. We've all seen them do it. They go up and they rub their chins on the corners of the house, on your legs, and on all kinds of things. And so we want to promote that. And one of the ways to do that is with these corner combs, because it feels good. And they do that, and it starts collecting the hair and the scent. If you have multiple cats, it's extremely important because they layer scent, which is one of the ways that they tolerate cohabitating with one another. So corner combs, know that they have to scent, give them opportunities to scent. Chewing is another thing we don't think about very often because we think about dogs chewing.
Oh, 1 second.
Yes, somebody trying to say something? We think about dogs chewing, but cats do need to chew, and some more than others. Some cats are real chewers. And
No, I didn't hear you.
okay, can you guys mute yourselves? I don't know who's unmuted there.
Communication.
Hold on. Was that it? I think that's it. Okay, got it. Sorry for that interruption. They don't need to chew as much as dogs, but they do need to chew, and give them opportunities to chew.
I'm
right?
taking them off. Let me pick up the last bit here.
Hold on. Here we go again. If you're not muted, would you please mute yourself? Here we go. Okay. So Silvervine. I think that's what this cat's chewing in there, but Silvervine sticks are really good. There's some toys that are good chewing toys. Regular sticks from the garden, sometimes they like. Soak them in a bag of catnip and then let them chew them. That's an awesome thing. They have natural chews. Rawhide isn't great for dogs or cats, but they have some natural chews out. Dried fish is another good thing. Any kind of jerky, cat safe jerky, beef, poultry, that kind of thing. I have freeze dried pheasant necks that were sent me, and they're about like that, and they're freeze dried, and he gnaws on them. And not only is it great for just chewing, but it's also helping to clean his teeth because he's getting contact with the outsides of his teeth. So don't overlook chewing in behavioral enrichment. Climbing, we talked about that already. Can't stress that enough, right? It's natural behavior that has to be provided. Prey play. We've gotten really lazy. I have to say, we're guilty of not prey playing with Pico as often as we should. Now, I do let him out on his harness and long leash so that he can chase lizards, which is a form of prey play also. But we've got to simulate that predatory hunting sequence behavior. If we're not indulging that cat's going to get really bored. And a bored cat That's not an enriched cat at all. In the wild, they're going to spend 6 hours a day hunting. So when we keep our cats indoors, which I do recommend, they get bored. And no, we don't have to prey play for 6 hours, but we should prey play twice a day for about 10 minutes each session before a meal, because that's the natural time. The other thing you should do is give them a treat, right? So we're simulating that hunting sequence, which is stalking it, chasing it, pouncing it, and delivering that kill bite. And when they deliver that kill bite in the wild, and when you're playing prey play, so it's very important you let them catch it, like this little cat in our picture here, because it gives off a boost of serotonin in the brain, which helps to make them feel better. But the one thing they're not getting when we're prey playing indoors, they're not getting to eat the prey. So I like to toss a treat out at him after he's caught it. He's caught it and wrestled with it, and then I've gotten it away, toss a treat. That helps to complete that hunting cycle and makes the cat feel even more satisfied with that time. They also, prey play, it doesn't need to be long because it's not really exercise. Dogs need a lot of exercise. Cats need a little bit of exercise, but not a lot of exercise, right? We're not really trying to exercise them. It's not a species that are long distance runners. They're not descendants of cheetahs either, right? So they're opportunistic hunters. In the wild, they really don't exert themselves very much. They'll chase prey, but if it's a rabbit and it gets too far, they're like, that's too much trouble. And they're going to wait for something that's a little easier. So 10-minute sessions is all we need. I can't stress enough the importance of prey play. Another one is stalking. They need to be able to stalk prey. I mean, come on, it's fun. So install bird feeders or squirrel feeders and things like that in front of your windows. Can it get a cat really worked up because they can't reach it? It can if you are not prey playing and if you are not feeding frequently. Yes, it can. If you have an overly stimulated cat that is OCD and spends all day long at the window in front of the bird feeder, and then when you try to pet it, it turns around and bites you because it's so worked up, maybe it's not great for that cat. But for 90% of the cats out there, the ability to sneak up and stalk on prey is very important. Hammocks in the windows, even leaving cat TV on in YouTube, they'll watch the birds, and that's stalking also. That helps enormously for them. And of course, hide and seek. Pico and I play this all the time. I taught him when he was a kitten. And really what it is, it's not so much hide and seek as it is predator and prey. He gets to be the predator, of course. I'm always the prey. And when I walk through a room, I'll catch his eyes. I'll make eye contact with him. And then I'll dart around a corner and I'll be real quiet. He knows I'm there, of course. And he comes around the corner and all of a sudden he'll jump up and go, got you, and then we go running off together. He loves to play that game. And that gives him a chance at stalking and chasing. He doesn't bite me, of course. He knows it's not prey. It's just a fun game they like to play. Indulge them in those fun games. And of course, catios. Oh my goodness, there's nothing more wonderful for a cat than to have a catio. The bigger, the better. You could not make a catio big enough. It keeps them safe from predators, yet gives them all the opportunities to experience natural living outside, to do the stalking. If little things get in the catio, they can do the hunting. We get mice in our catio every now and then, and they provide a great enrichment opportunity for Pico to hunt. Now, mental enrichment. This provides cognitive stimulation for your cat. Really, when you think of it, all these 7 enrichment categories could apply to us as well, right? So let's start with treat puzzles. We talked about that. And everything in this category is about challenges, right? Cats need to figure things out. They've got to have an opportunity for problem solving daily. They absolutely do. When they are not mentally stimulated, boredom sets in. And think about it. If you sat around all day long with nothing to think about, nothing to plan, just wrote routines, you'd go stir crazy. And the same thing is true for your cat. They start getting depressed. You'll notice they'll sleep more. They're not as active. You know, that's what this means is, bottom line is captivity, which is what these cats are. They're living in captivity, lacks in the complex challenges and stimulus that they would normally encounter out in the wild. So we need to provide that. So the treat puzzles, this actually goes beyond foraging, right? You can have simple treat puzzles that's foraging. This is actually complex challenges. Start with the little ball, right? Because that's a little easier. There's a little ball that they bat around and the treats fall out, and then go to the little fishbowl looking one, right? And then go to the ones that have the sliders. So start with this ball and go to fishbowl, and then these that have sliders, and then go to something really complex. Then they have to learn to lift up these tabs and push down the center section to release the treats, right? Graduate them in levels of challenges. Treat toss. Now this is foraging, and it's very good. You simply toss a treat across the room, gives them a little bit of exercise, gives them a lot of foraging opportunity. If you toss it like under the curtain or under the couch or a chair, they also got to reach further and try to figure out where it went and dig it out. Clicker training. Oh my gosh, this is one of the best things you can do for cats. This does so much for a cat. It makes them feel in control of you and their environment. It teaches them new skills. They have to figure out what they're doing that made them get the treat that they like. It's awesome. And it's fun for you because your cat learns fun new things to do. Create a maze for them out of cardboard boxes. This is fun. Hide treats and toys. Get some new catnip treats and toys and stuff and put them inside the boxes. This is Colin Marmalade's maze. And that's just such a fun game, especially if you have multiple cats. They play hide and seek in the maze. That's a cool thing. Be sure to change their toys frequently. So we have a whole bunch of toys and variety of toy boxes, and I'll pick them up and I'll soak them in catnip, and then I'll change them out. I'll pick up the others, put out fresh ones. I get new toys so that he's always got something new and stimulating, because they do get bored with their old toys. And if your cat's comfortable with it, walks are a great way of mental enrichment, right? It gives them lots of things to look at and figure out, what are they seeing? What are they doing? Now, if your cat, you just take it outside and it totally flips out and it's not comfortable with that, well, the stress doesn't outweigh the enrichment that they're getting out of this. And our last category is sensory enrichment. And this stimulates their senses. Their senses are so heightened compared to ours, but yet they're also very delicate. So we have to be careful what kinds of things, like, certain oils, essential oils and things like that can be very toxic to cats, as can plants. So we got to be really careful with sensory enrichment, but it is a thing. And here are the things you can do. Obviously, catnip is stimulating when they smell it. It's calming when they eat it. I had a cat I had to evaluate today that was in the clinic, and she was really, off to herself and hiding in a box and big dilated eyes. And the clinic staff had reported her as to be, hissing and difficult to handle. And I took some catnip and I sprinkled it in her box, and she's like, oh, that's really cool. Started smelling it and rolling it. And before you know, I'm petting her and we're good buddies. And so catnip can really, really be an important breakthrough, even when you're working with a behavior cat. Silver vine, similar to catnip, it's also a plant. and it stimulates cats. More cats actually respond to silvervine than do catnip. A lot of the catnips are coming with silvervine mixed in so that it appeals to a wider audience. And then there are grasses, like you're seeing this cat munch on here, cat grasses. There are all kinds of different ones that are safe for cats. Wheatgrass is one I particularly like, but there's a lot of different ones and a lot of cool kits out there. In fact, I've got one I'm going to do a product review on. That's a great big pan and comes with the little dirt cubes and the whole bit. So lots of good opportunities there. Another thing is scent in paper bags, right? Go ahead and put the catnip and the silvervine in paper bags, put toys in the paper bags or boxes, that kind of thing. So add the sensory enrichment to a place to explore. Sounds, nature sounds are good. The birds, YouTube TV, cat TV on YouTube, ICALM, cat music if the cat is stressed. All kinds of sounds that are enriching. They don't like heavy metal. They're okay with some calming classical piano music, some classical music, as long as it's not too frenzied. But nature sounds are always good to leave on for your cat. Cat TV, we mentioned on YouTube, and herbs and spices. We've done some research here lately that has supported that cats like, dill, oregano, parsley, rosemary, and olives of all things. Now, when I heard that, I took olives to the shelter and I thought, well, I'm going to try this. If cats love olives, I couldn't get a single cat to eat the olives. But veterinary actually said that. So who knows? Try your cat with olives and let me know how it works out. So in conclusion, I have three things I want to say to you in conclusion here. One is there's a lot of overlap, as we talked about in these things. High perches affects couple different levels, categories of enrichment. So there's lots of overlap. Like clicker is both mental and behavioral, right? Because it's natural for them in their natural environment to learn new things. And so it's both of those things. Another thing is I want you to be all in. I don't want you to think about this as an a la carte menu item where you go, well, okay, he's got scratching and no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're going to do this and that. Be all in about enrichment. Provide your cat with all of these things. He needs all of them. It's not optional. And if this is feeling overwhelming to you, I suggest that you create a plan, maybe a chart for integration of a new enrichment thing every week or something like that. Make it manageable for you. Make it whatever you can handle. But I really, really, really would like to see you and encourage you to take this on and provide your cat with everything that we talked about today. And like I said, I will create a checklist of these 7 categories and each of the items in there for you so that you have it. Okay, and now there's my email, by the way. If you feel free to email me, it's molly@catbehaviorsolutions.org or molly@cattalkradio.com. So you feel free to email me and anytime, any questions. And I'm going to let you guys tell me where's my chat screen here, because I saw a couple chats come up. Did anybody have questions? Okay, here we have. How do you then get tons of litter all over the floor if it's not covered? Yeah, well, you do. And, I keep a couple things. I keep a broom near my litter box, right next to my litter box. I keep a smaller broom and dustpan. So with my big broom, I put it in a pile, and my smaller broom and dustpan, I put it in the dustpan. I dump it back in the litter box. I also keep one of those dust busters plugged in. right next to it. So if I've got some real stray little things, I use that as well. I have not found a litter that doesn't track. I just, it's a matter of how much it tracks, not if it tracks. The only thing that won't track is pellets, and cats don't like pellets. So it's nothing natural about a pellet texture for a cat in a litter. So you just, I think it's something we just all have to figure out how we're going to deal with in our home. Let's see, what kind of freeze-dried necks did you mention? It was a pheasant neck, and I think the company was, I think if you Google freeze-dried pheasant necks, you'll see them. Pheasant's in the name of the company. It's a pheasant farm, and they process pheasants for dogs and cats, and they have lots of freeze-dried pheasant stuff, hearts, livers. Like I said, the necks were kind of cool because they actually can eat them, but it was really providing great dental cleaning. So it was good. I have an entire page devoted to music for cats. Cat news headlines. Yes, Doug is with us. Check out catnewsheadlines.com. You talk about resources. Mr. Doug has tons of resources on his website. So go to Cat News Headlines. iCalm Pet, that's the one that I use. You can download their music, which I do to my phone. And so I just have my phone in my pocket, like when I'm at the shelter, playing iCalm Cat, because I know all those cats are stressed and it's calming music. iCalm Cats also has a recording for like sensory. So, and it has baby cries and traffic and stuff like that. So it's at real low levels below the music. So it can desensitize cats to specific sounds. So there's all kinds of stuff out there. Okay, you're anxious about offering freeze-dried necks because choking hazard. I've never had trouble with that, no. And I think it's because it's raw, it's freeze-dried raw, that it doesn't splinter. You know, we think about chicken bones splintering and that being a real choking hazard. And that's because it's cooked. Anytime you cook like chicken bones, then they're a splinting hazard. The raw bones are not. So I give my guy I give him raw chicken, bones, and I watch him, and he doesn't work on it too much, but the freeze-dried stuff is good. I recommend that. And yes, and Dallas Pets Alive. Yes. Check out dallaspetsalive.org. You can email them, tag@dallaspetsalive.org, and tell us where your new location is too. You want to put that address in the chat box?
Yes, we are located at 310 Commonwealth Drive, also known as Community Beer Co. It's a brewery, and we're located right outside.
Awesome. Grab a beer.
Yes, so grab a drink, grab food, and grab a cat.
Yeah.
And we have shirts that say, I love cats and wine, and I love dogs and beer.
That's perfect. And are there hours? Do they need to call for?
Yes, we're open Thursday, Friday afternoon, evenings, and then all day Saturday, Sunday.
Awesome. That's fun. I'm gonna
come check us out, everybody. I'd love to meet everyone in person.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. So somebody
This
else
was awesome.
says, what do you think of Sustainably Yours cat litter? I haven't tried that particular one. I use Smart Cat, which is actually made from grass, for my fosters, because the kittens need, a natural litter that's not going to hurt them if they happen to ingest it. It does clump. It's light and fluffy, has a good texture. It is biodegradable, and clearly it's from a renewable source, being grasses. It does track. That's probably the one thing I would say I don't like about it. I can't tell you about odor control yet because I only have used it with my fosters. I plan to use it with Pico to try it. That way I can compare it. I've got a baseline there, basically. If I've got kittens, I don't know how smelly their poop is every day naturally. So I know what Pico's stuff smells like in Tidy Cat Free and Clean. That's the one that we use, which is not environmentally friendly and it's not a renewable source. Clump's awesome. Cats love it. Horrible for the environment. So I am on a quest. I'm keeping a detailed spreadsheet of all of these litters that I'm using. I've tried World's Best. Not crazy about that. Not crazy about that. I don't think it clumps really great. I've tried Sweet Scoop. Not as crazy about that one. I think Smart Cat's probably the one I like best so far, but I will put that on the list. Sustainably Yours. I stopped offering my cat grass because it makes him vomit every time. Yeah, it does do that. It can make him vomit. I have a great blog on why do cats eat plants. If you go to my website and in the search bar, put in, cats, plants, just put in plants and it'll pull up that blog and it talks about why cats eat plants and some of those things, but very often it makes them throw up. It's not, and it's because cats really can't digest carb, plant, vegetable matter, right? They're obligate carnivores. They can digest animal proteins. They don't digest grass. So why do we give it to them? Because they love to eat it. And yeah, it makes them throw up. Now, Pico's gotten pretty good. He can eat grass and not throw up. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's because he's on a raw diet. And I just don't know. I don't know. But he'll go outside and eat natural grasses. And I'll grow grass for him and he eats those. And never any vomiting. Never. So, what else? Did I get all of these questions? Never. Okay. I think I got them all. Anybody else have any questions or comments or input for us today? Was this helpful? Did you learn something? Did everybody learn something new today they didn't know? Do you like giving all cats probiotics? I do. I use Fortiflora just because I think it has a lot of brewer's yeast in it, which cats really like. So it's very palatable. And if I have kittens, I do it every day in kittens, that and L-lysine and all kinds of crazy mixtures of stuff with kittens. But with my adult cat, if I know that there's going to be a change in the environment, people visiting from out of town, travel, stuff like that, our schedule's real hectic, any kind of change in the environment, I give probiotics because I want to keep that GI system as comfortable as possible. Also, if he starts not eating his meals fully or something like that, I think something might be going on and I'll start to add it back in. It can't hurt. It cannot hurt to give it to him every day, just like us. It's good for us. Thought Pretty Litter was way too dusty. Yeah, I haven't tried the Pretty Litter. I tried the crystal litters, when those first came out, those little, Pico thought I'd lost my mind. He walked up to the litter box and he smelled it and he tasted it. He actually tasted it. I was like, what are you doing? And then he turned around and looked at me like, what the heck is this stuff? And I thought, well, okay, maybe he'll go use it. He finally used it. He clearly did not like it at all. I dumped it and we went back to horrible in the environment litter that he uses. But yeah, litter's an interesting topic. That's why I did the podcast on it. It was an interesting topic. We could do a whole seminar just on litter. And once I collect enough data, we're gonna do that. Good. I'm glad everybody got something out of this today. Yeah. Awesome. Suggestions for the next webinar? Do you guys have other topics you'd like to hear more about? I'm going to throw those in the chat column if you do. Something we haven't covered. last one I think we did was cats and kids, and we talked all about, how to get a cat ready for a new baby coming in, new baby coming, and how to introduce, cats to toddlers and the whole kid thing. That was fun. Aggression management, yeah. Cats and skin mites, why vets treat both and not just one. Okay, interesting. Okay, good. Yeah, aggression management, definitely complex topic, and yeah. Learn more about adding climbing height catification to the home, but also discouraging things like counter surfing. That's a really good one. I like that. How to catify your home, parts of your home, and not have your whole home be considered in the catification zone. Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. That's a very good one. And I got lots of ideas for that. So yeah, awesome. We'll do that, Sarah. Thank you. That's good. All right. Anybody got anything else for us? Are you ready to get back to your Saturday, Father's Day afternoon? That it? Okay, everybody. Until next time, keep calm and purr on. Bye-bye. Thanks for coming.